Mike McCool here with the Royal Examiner. In the studio with me today is Front Royal Town Manager Joe Waltz. Joe, I wanted to talk to you about the last public hearing we had last week at the council meeting. The council public hearing was on electrical, wasn't about electrical rates. Now I recall what that was, but it was basically, it was just more like bookkeeping procedures. But a lot of people spoke about why their electric rate was so high, and there was confusion. I think you tried to explain it to people, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to let's sit down and say, why is my electric rate so high, other than just usage? Yeah. So go ahead, tell me about it.
Well, thank you, Mike, for giving me the opportunity to talk today about this. Actually, Monday's public hearing was on some code changes in the electric department. Basically some housekeeping items and changing some names to be relevant for today.
But it had the word electric rate in there.
Yeah, it did have the word electric rate, and actually I think it was a good opportunity to hear some of the citizens talk about what their concern is on their power bill. And so we did have 4 citizens to get up and talk about their high rate, or at least what they perceive as to be a high rate in electric usage. And the conversation seemed to focus on the PCA, which is, PCA stands for Power Cost Adjustment. That is built into our rate. And to give you an idea, we bill on, when we go out and purchase power, there's 3 things that we can have control over, or 3 things that are basically built into it. One is energy use. Whatever you use for, you pay for that. The other is demand, also called capacity. You have to pay for that power to be available when you need it. And then the third component is transmission charges. Those are the items that we have less control over. That is handled by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the transmission network. And so we have, over the past year, seen the transmission charges and congestions increasing. And so when you start to see your wholesale power costs increase, you have 2 options. One is to adjust the base rate or adjust what they call the PCA. The PCA is a very usual item that a lot of utilities use. Rappahannock calls it something different. They call it a fuel cost adjustment, but it's the same principle. It allows the utility to make an immediate change when there's a change in the market, so that you do not lose a lot of revenue and get upside down in your business. The idea for the PCA is to be used for irregular events or something that may transpire over 6 months, and then you can ratchet that PCA back down to a very nominal value. We actually raised our PCA in October for the fact of what we saw over the summer. We were having heavy congestion charges, we were losing money in what we were paying, and so we had to make that change. When we initiated that change in October, we also decided that we had to do another cost of service study. The cost of service study determines what our rate should be at 0 profit. That's the biggest thing we got to remind our citizens. We're not here to make money. We operate at cost. We do that with all our enterprise funds, water, sewer, and trash. We're not in the business of making money. We're here to provide the best service at the lowest cost.
That's why we have one of the lowest rates in the state.
Right, and that's important to remember. We have not raised our base rates since 2008. That's 10 years.
Wow, wow.
We did run 4 years as the lowest utility in the state of Virginia. The lowest. We're no longer there, but we're still in the top 5. And that's pretty impressive.
Considering how many companies we're talking about.
Right. And,
hundreds.
Yeah. And so, is there room for improvement? And that's what we're going to be working on. And that's what the cost of service study that we're working on right now is to try to determine what those rates are, so that we can bring back the PCA down to that nominal value. Because the PCA is only designed for you to recover when there's a blip in the market. For an example, you hear the word polar vortex. When you hear a polar vortex, you got to be concerned, because what happens is your electric is going to run non-stop. Especially in this community, you have a lot of electric heat. And when it gets below that freezing temperature, that electric heat, even on your heat pumps, goes straight to electric heat.
Right.
Now
Once we get below that freezing mark.
Now you're paying top dollar. one of the things to remember is that we buy power out on the market, and we've been very successful. We started this back in '07 by developing a new portfolio. By instead of buying our power from one person, which they call an all-in requirements contract, we decided to go with a diversified portfolio, which really was the success of what we've been doing here. We bought into generation assets, so we got coal, we've got natural gas, we've got hydro, we've got wind, we've got solar. And then I have a bunch of other multi-contracts, just straight out purchases. But that allows us to control our own destiny, and that's why we that's why we haven't raised our base rates in 10 years.
But when you go out and purchase this power, you're not buying 100% on these contracts. You're only buying less than 100%. So then you have to make up that small percentage, I understand.
Right. Basically, the industry standard is normally you secure 85 to 90% of what you need, because you just don't know. Particularly like this last year, we had mild points in the winter and mild in the summer, so that's why you only procure about 85 to 90%, because if you got more power than you need, then you're out on the market selling it, or if you need more power, then you're out on the market buying.
And that's a lot of risk.
And that's a lot of risk. So, so it's risk management at its best. And what gets us in a pinch is polar vortexes. Last year, when we had a polar vortex, we saw market prices at $200 a megawatt. When I'm normally paying $70 a megawatt, we're seeing that out on the market over 200, just because of the demand and the load.
Electric's kind of like gasoline. We see the price go all over the place based upon the price of barrel.
That's
and
true.
I think people understand that. I don't think they really understand electric's kind of the same way. I mean,
it is.
It's demand driven.
It's demand driven, it's market based, and the rates fluctuate. So that's why we're doing the cost of service, to figure out where that sweet spot is for the base rate, and then only use the PCA when we have a polar vortex. So you may have to adjust it for 3 months and then bring it back down. Right now it's not serving that purpose. It's actually bringing in revenue because our base rates are off.
Right, right. Now, what's the regulation on this? These aren't just numbers and things you just pulled out of the air. Are these things part of your rate, and are regulatory agencies kind of put caps on things, or is it?
Actually, for the state of Virginia, there's 13 municipalities, just like us, that supplies energy to their citizens. We're not governed by the State Corporation Commission like the investor zones and the co-ops.
Right.
They have to go down to Richmond to get their rates changed, and therefore, there's a stance that in communities like us, our elected representatives know more than the people down in Richmond. And so that's why they have bestowed that power to town council on deciding what is the rate, what is a justifiable rate, what is your justifiable return on your investment. And so that is where we employed an engineering firm to do this cost of service study. So they'll be presenting that to council, if my hopes is in February, presenting to council what it looks like, what our rates should be to recover our costs, and where we're going to be 5 years from now.
Right.
My objective right now is to get these rates stabilized for people to make plans, and for that they can make plans, and for that they can see what's coming into the future. If there is another rate hike, I would like the citizens to know that it's 3 years out, 4 years out, so that they can plan.
Right, because they build power plants, and I noticed the coal was kind of disappearing in some places, coming back in others.
You're right, and for an example, our generation assets that we bought into, those are 40-year term things, so they're going to be a long-term investment for the town. And when a little feather in our hat is, with all of what we bought into, we're about 15% renewable. Even though we do not have what they call RPS, a renewable portfolio standard, we have been able to incorporate renewable energy in our portfolio to be a better steward of the environment, and we're still been able to maintain the costs.
Well, I notice as we attend these council meetings and bring them to the citizens on the Royal Examiner, there is the enterprise funds always get brought up, and the money, and people say, oh, we got $7 million there, but this money's already pre-allocated. I mean, you got to buy and purchase. And I tell people, said they call it a slush fund, you know,
Right.
And I hate to use that word, but if you're in any kind of business, these big substation power transformers? They don't cost $10. You don't go to Walmart and buy it. I mean, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars or even more. And I think we need to know, people need to know that it costs money to run an we're just like Dominion or Allegheny or one of these companies, just on a smaller scale, because we're distributing. We have our poles and lines, and all this stuff basically belongs to the town of Front Royal.
Right. Yeah, and it's important, and you're right, Mike, it is important to remember that we run them all separately. They are supported by the service fees from what they serve, that no tax dollars go to the electric department.
Right, right.
And with that philosophy that we do not operate for profit, we provide the best service at the cost.
I think if people could look at electric bill from the county area and kind of have a comparison, they would see that people in the county are paying a whole lot more. You hear them say, no, my friend in the county is paying $85 a month. Well, he must not be home, because you can't do anything for $85 a month anymore. But or you heat by wood or something. You know, a lot of county homes are heated by wood.
Oh yeah,
and that little augmentation makes a huge difference in your electric bill.
Oh yes, and it's funny you say that. I can remember in 05, 06 over there on Duck Street, when it wasn't Rappahannock, it was Allegheny.
Right.
And so one side of the street was Front Royal and the other side was Allegheny, and Front Royal was the highest and Allegheny was the lowest. And
yeah, I mean, people would start comparing and looking at it. But I do know we have a lot of electric heat, a lot of baseboard heat in the homes that were built back in the 70s and 80s. You know, to save $1, people put baseboard heat in. Electric was a little lower back then. But when you're running it, you're right. Just when you touch that thermostat, people are up and down with the thermostat. And, you know, I always tell them, set it and leave it and don't touch it. You know, it's like the kids, I'll smack your arm if you touch that thermostat. But it does, you know, we got to learn to put on a sweater or something. But you're right, this electric is, it's like cash going out the door when that meter starts rolling around.
Right, and a lot of times you're unaware because there's a lag in your reading.
Exactly.
So like you may we'll hit this polar vortex supposedly on Monday, but the citizens won't see the impact financially probably for 45 days.
Right, right. And then what happened?
Then what happened, exactly.
I know, it's like I go out and I look at my meter and it's spinning around so fast I think the dial's going to come out of it sometimes. But I heard you talking about meters. Speaking of that, we're talking about getting a digital readout so people can actually look at the meter themselves and it makes sense to them. Because everything's backwards, upside down, or whatever, trying to read that dial sometimes. Can be confusing.
Yeah, we, you know, and some people are unaware of this, but if people have a desire, their electric meter can get tested if they feel that it's inaccurate. I will say this, as an ex-meter technician,
right.
It's 99.8% they read good.
Right.
And very rare.
I know you were in charge of the electric department for many years, so I mean, you know this inside and out.
Right. And also people can, they can request a meter read, and also can request a digital meter, because some people would like to read their meter and kind of watch what their usage. And also when they get their bill, they can say, okay, the bill says, you know, I use this amount of usage,
right.
And go out and verify it. So,
right.
And we do that change free as well if they request it.
I think basically, you know, the electric, people will even say that my electric really doesn't go off in the town. I may get a little flicker, or if it's off, it's down. But or someone runs into the pole and knocks the transformer out. It does take an hour or two. Right. But overall, you know, we have a 99.9% uptime, I believe, in the town.
Oh yeah, we do. We have excellent reliability of service. And another thing that we noticed dealing with somebody this week on electric is that it wasn't electric as an issue, it was a water and sewer issue, but they get a joint bill with the electric,
right,
water, sewer, and trash. So sometimes
that's another thing. People look at that bill and say, "Oh, it's my electric," because that's right. Normally the big. But right. And you're right. The water and sewer can really jack it up there when you look at that. And, well, I've lived in the county, and I've lived up on the mountain. I've had electric heat. I've had a well and a septic, and I wouldn't trade the town for anything. I can tell you that, because whatever I'm spending, it's still well worth it. When I turn that switch, it's on, and I think that's what people, they want that faith that the electric's going to be there, because a lot of places it's not. I don't notice too many brownouts even in the summertime. We've been pretty good about that.
Yeah, I've only dealt with brownouts and black. I did rolling blackouts in my career in the early 2000s at a company I used to work.
Right.
And that was pretty daunting. So.
Well, I think you do a good job keeping the electric on. I know people, if they have questions on their electric, don't wait 2 or 3 months and start complaining on Facebook about the electric. Give Joe a call or the electric department a call. I know that you'll get the right people in touch with them and send somebody out to make sure and eliminate any questions that you may have on your electric bill, or even on your water or sewer. I mean, it's the same thing. All that's run by the town's own department. So I know it costs a lot of money. I know it's in the millions that we spend for this every year, and but we appreciate it. I think people, if they got a little more involved in it, I think people would really, you know, have the grip with the real cost of things, because we have nothing to compare it to. You know?
That's true, and knowledge is power. And I think that, yeah, if they have any issues, come to the meetings, come and talk.
Right.
Our staff is dedicated. Our staff wants to get that feedback and follow up and do an excellent job, because for me, as well as all my staff, we're here to serve. We're here to serve the citizens.
Well, you know, the Royal Examiner comes to all these meetings and and it's amazing now. People are starting to engage and watch these things and really participate. Last month we had almost 300 hours of video watching. Well, that's a lot of hours. I mean, and minutes on and most of that is town council or board of supervisor meetings and some of our other videos. So it's there. Take a look at it, watch it. Please call Joe or his department, or the electric department, water department, sewer department, if you have any questions at all about your bills. I think that they're here to help us keep the low rates and keep the electric on. That's Joe, I really appreciate everything you do for us. Thanks again for coming in.
Appreciate the opportunity, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.